Hello my fellow fasting foodie friend, it's Jackie, and today I'm going to share with you advice from other fellow fasters. I am very clear, I am sharing with you guys my experience. I'm not an expert, I haven't studied nutrition, diet, medical, anything. I'm just someone whose life has been changed by fasting. And when I say I'm just someone, I don't mean to downplay that it has changed my life or that my experience could be valuable to you, because that's why I share. I think having a community of fasters in your corner really can help you on the journey. Not only see what's possible, but see that other people have struggles, see that other people implement it without having a perfect diet, and have encouragers for you in your corner. And that's why I want to share with you other advice from other fasters. So recently on my community tab, I posted this and I asked other fasters to share their #1 piece of advice that they'd give to a new faster. I'll read to you exactly what I said. I said, bottom line, if you are an intermittent faster, what advice would you like to add to an advice video? And here are all of the responses that I received. So I am going to pop up the comment on the screen. I'm also going to read the person's name or their username on YouTube. And I'm just also going to put the caveat that every person's advice that they share may not be exactly the way that I implement intermittent fasting. So if I read something that sounds different than what I say, I want you to know that part of doing this is just to show that every person doesn't intermittent fast the same way. It's not 1 + 2 = 3. It isn't that simple. Intermittent fasting might look different for you than it looks for me. I am a 35-year-old white female mom, and your life, your lifestyle, your makeup is going to be different than mine, which means that our implementation of intermittent fasting is going to be different depending on who you are, where you live, and what your lifestyle is. And that's okay. So the advice that I read may not align with every single thing that I say in previous videos, but I'm reading to you fasting advice from others who are implementing intermittent fasting the way that works best for them. So I may not endorse every single thing that I read, but I think there's value in hearing other people's advice. The first comment is from Mom Fasting. She also has a YouTube channel, and her advice is, and yes, as I'm reading these, I will be looking at my phone. Keep learning. Books, podcasts, YouTube videos, they're all great learning tools. And know that you are an individual, and what works for someone may not work for you. That's pretty much what I just said, that everyone has different advice to share, and just take it with a grain of salt. I totally agree. Check out Mom Fasting. Again, she has her own YouTube channel, and I love that advice. Keep learning, keep seeing what works for you, and just remember, what works for me 100% may not work for you. Take what you can from different people, put it together, and make a plan that works for you. It takes a lot of trial and error. One Golden Breeze says this: watching YouTube videos to learn about intermittent fasting is great and can be very helpful in motivating someone to start intermittent fasting. However, in my honest opinion, it is a must to have your own library of books on the topic so that you feel confident in your choice, know for yourself how it works, know what to do if you hit a problem, and get an idea of what you might say to friends and family who oppose your choice. I love that advice. I'm a full supporter of learning this and building your library, and I totally agree that I am someone that wants to motivate you and encourage you on this process, and I know other YouTubers have the same idea. They want you to be motivated and inspired and encouraged through sharing, but I'm not a researcher, I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a nutritionist, and every person that shares also has voids of what they can't share with you. And I think that having the personal library and really learning is such great advice. I have a very vast collection that I've started, and I keep adding to it, and I'm gonna link below to the books that I love, the books that I have in my personal library, and you can check out what I suggest below. Thank you for that advice, One Golden Breeze. Next comes from Becky Grimes. Cleaning up the diet by at least doing lower carb and lower sugar before beginning intermittent fasting is very helpful. Then practice fasting 12 hours, 14 hours before jumping into 16 or more. For those of us with autoimmune or health conditions, I believe this gently eases the body into intermittent fasting. I've only made it to a 20-hour fast, but I'm losing weight and it is working. Best and most important of all, don't forget to take a good electrolyte powder mix as well as a magnesium supplement. She says she buys hers on Amazon. They sell unflavored electrolytes so it won't ruin your clean fast, or take your flavored with your meal. You don't want your heart racing or palpitations due to potassium and magnesium loss from weight loss and dehydration. and she just notes that drinking water does not replace electrolytes, so get your electrolytes. Thank you, Becky. And I am someone that has recently started drinking liquid IV at the very end of my fast, or especially on these hot days, I might have 2 cups because it's that delicious. I'll share with you. So here's one of them that I have. It's passion fruit. I also have watermelon, which is my personal favorite. I have a code where you can get free shipping and I think 25% off with free shipping on your order from Liquid IV forever. I do really like them. I am not sponsored by them, but they did reach out to me and ask if I would like to try their product and become an affiliate. And with these 97-degree days and constantly sweating and fasting, I have become a huge fan of drinking these. They do have sugar in them, so I drink them in my eating window, as she mentions. She does mention unflavored ones. I have no experience with that, but I trust that Becky does, and she says you can get different ones, and I definitely agree with magnesium. If I don't have magnesium, I have pooping problems, but that's my advice, not hers. Also, on Becky's advice, I think it's really smart. I definitely was not someone that took a stair-step approach, and I didn't change my diet at all. However, I do think that if you're going to go low carb and low sugar, it makes sense to do it before starting intermittent fasting. I think that would be way too much to do at the same time, and it sounds like Becky has great experience with that. So if you want to change your diet and start intermittent fasting, I do think it makes sense to change your diet, get used to that before you start intermittent fasting. All of it at once, I think, would be too overwhelming. And also, if you're not the type that would jump right into an 18 or 20-hour fast like Becky, I think the starting with 12 hours, then to 14, then to 16, and working your way up is a wonderful way to start. As we have already gone over, every single person's approach and experience with intermittent fasting isn't going to be the same. And just because I jumped into doing OMAD doesn't mean you need to. I personally like to eat a lot in a short period. That's not what everyone likes to do. Thank you, Becky, for that advice. B. Fleming is our next commenter, and she said, I started with 12-hour fast and now do 18-6 or more. Find the time that you like to eat most and make that your eating window. If you have an event you'd like to eat at, just move your window for that day. It's a lot easier to control when you eat than what you eat, at least for me. 100%, that is the freedom that I found in fasting. I have dieted my entire adult life. You guys have heard the stories, but having the time restrictions is much more concrete. It's very easy for me to stick to that compared to restricting what I'm eating, restricting how much I'm eating, restricting how much of what I'm eating. Did I have too much? All of that stuff. I 100% agree, B. Fleming. Restricting when I eat is much easier than what I eat, and I think a lot of people find that same freedom with intermittent fasting. And I also agree that if you have events and it's not your normal eating window, just move your windows around. You are totally free to do that. There is a lot of freedom and flexibility with intermittent fasting. Robin Malk, I'm guessing, says, I'm still pretty new to intermittent fasting. I've worked up to 24. I find I have to plan what to break my fast so I don't overdo a snack before a meal. Give yourself time to adapt to plain coffee. It really took me a good month before I tolerated coffee without milk. I am someone that 100% agrees with you. I personally loved black coffee before starting intermittent fasting, and I think that was a huge advantage. If you don't like black coffee or plain tea, I definitely suggest that you work on trying that because it makes fasting easier when you have a different variety of beverages you can have. I like that Robin points out that planning a snack keeps her from going overboard. I think that is really smart. Having something that you're not only looking forward to, but you planned it out will help control when you open your window, especially as a new intermittent faster. I know there were a lot of times I opened my window and I went crazy. Follow Robin's advice. Plan out your opening and you might have better success and not go as overboard as I did at first. K8 Jones says, clean fasting is a must. I used to chew gum and drink flavored waters during my fasting window. While I did this, I wasn't seeing as much by way of results until I cut it all out and went to water only. I don't drink coffee, and while that would change things up, I'm sure going clean is what helped the most. If you're not clean fasting, are you really fasting? Personally, I don't think so. So then there's some conversation after that, and I'm not gonna go into the conversation just because that would really derail us. But I do agree that clean fasting is really important. So there are people that have, say, apple cider vinegar, or they put, I can't remember, keto coffee, where they put fat in their coffee at the beginning of the day, or they do diet colas because it's 0 calorie, or flavored LaCroix. I don't do any of that, and I do think it personally makes a difference. I don't know if it makes a difference in my fast so much as I feel like it makes it harder for me to get longer fasts in. I personally think that when I have flavors outside of my eating window, it does make it harder for me to fast. I don't chew gum, I don't have mints, and if I'm in a dire like breath situation, I will, simply to avoid embarrassment. But I do agree that clean fasting really makes a big difference. And for me, I don't know if it ruins a fast, but I do know it makes it harder for me to continue fasting. And that is important. It's important to me to make it as easy as possible. So K8 Jones, I do agree with you. Okay, this next one is from Cathy Talbert. Cathy says, try to eat keto low carb for a couple of weeks before jumping into intermittent fasting. It helps with any sugar cravings, and it helps you move into ketosis or the fat burning fasted state easier. I believe my intermittent fasting transition was much easier having been eating low carb for months prior. I have no personal experience with this, but I don't doubt Cathy's experience. I have shared in the past that I went keto for a month as a trial, and I definitely burned more fat during that time period. Again, this is kind of one of those experiences where I have to default to her opinion. I don't really have much to share on it, but thank you, Cathy, for sharing that. James Martinez, short and simple, 20 hours of fasting daily works wonders. That is really a sweet spot for me too. I think it is an amazing amount, and if you think about it, eating for 4 hours every day, if you did do the full 4 hours every day, is actually a long time, especially as you adjust to fasting. You could definitely have a great appetizer, a wonderful meal, a great dessert, every single eating window if you wanted to, and 20 hours of a fast really does great. I agree, James. Christine Roscoe is up next, and Christine says, a cup of bone broth will help with tummy gurgles and get you over the hump, and it will not break your fast. Electrolytes are a must while fasting. Ultima is a great powder and keto friendly and has great flavors. The electrolytes will also help with sodium imbalances, and she puts in parentheses headaches, caused by fasting. Oh, and there's also electrolytes in the bone broth as well. I also suggest easing in their intermittent fasting. Start with a 12-hour window and move up a little bit at a time as you're ready. I've never had bone broth. It's one of those like buzzwords that gives me the ick. It sounds gross to me, so I have no experience, but again, I default to you, Christine. I trust your advice as something that works well for you. So others out there, I have no opinion on that. I don't take bone broth in my fast, but I'm not saying it's bad. CG is the next commenter, and the advice from CG is always look at how healthy the person giving advice looks. And I don't mean just weight, but color, vibrancy, energy, etc. I think that is wonderful advice. Is the person that's giving you advice someone that you want to emulate? Do you want what it appears that they have? It's taking the advice with a grain of salt. Context clues. I agree, CG. Jenny Laurie says, obviously learn about the clean fast. As difficult as it might seem at first, it truly will help you. When someone first wakes up, they typically won't have hunger. As long as you don't taste anything and produce insulin, you can maintain that lack of hunger for quite a while. This might take a couple of days to develop in a new intermittent fasting routine, but it is so worth it for success. Another clean fast, I definitely agree that when I wake up in the morning, it is the easiest time for fasting. Even if it's the morning after a 2-day fast, I wake up and I'm not hungry. I never wake up hungry. So I do agree with what Jenny's saying, that you can carry that through. If you're having a clean fast and you're not adding anything into your body, releasing the insulin, or making it think it's gonna eat with flavors, I do personally find it much easier to fast, so I agree with Jenny. And again, that's something that's repeated in Fast, Feast, Repeat many times, the importance of a clean fast. That's where I first got introduced to the idea, and I think a lot of intermittent fasters learned of the clean fast there, and that's right, that's where my source has started. Julie Vose, I hope I said that right. It looks like nose with a V. Julie Vose, my best advice, don't be afraid to mix things up and try different fasting tools to make this lifestyle work for you. Your fast do not have to look like anyone else's for you to be successful. That is 100% wonderful advice. I am 100% behind that. I made an entire video about this. Don't copy me. I will link that below. Maybe it'll be the one I link at the end of this video. But it's basically, I acknowledge that I share a lot of information with you guys and I share with you exactly what I do, but it's so that you can just see the variety that intermittent fasting offers, the flexibility that I have, not so that you copy me and that my flexibility becomes your blueprint, but it's so that you can see it can be flexible for you too. I 100% agree that what works for me isn't gonna work for every single person, but I do think that fasting has so many tools that every person could probably make a plan that works for them if they try hard enough, try enough things, and really take the time to learn about it. I think most people can find success. Thank you, Julie. Jenny Benny, love it, says, don't weigh yourself every day and be cautious how you break your fast. I personally found it very motivating to weigh myself every day and take weekly averages. So it depends on where you are in the process if I agree with that or not. I don't discount that that worked well for Jenny. Some people, the scale is very demotivating. I definitely think that if you do weigh yourself daily, you have to acknowledge you're gonna have fluctuations every day and be very cautious how you break your fast. I do think that is great advice. I, for a long time, broke my fast with whatever sounded good, and I have since learned, and it doesn't mean I don't ever do it, but if I break my fast with sugar, I want sugar the entire eating window. And if I break my fast with protein, I want protein the entire eating window. And I think that says a lot. I am telling my body what it's gonna eat, and that's what it's asking for. And so I think it's very good advice to be careful of what you break your fast with. It's kind of how you're setting up your entire eating window, or that's been my experience. Thank you, Jenny Benny, for the advice. Jennifer Bell, if you stop eating excess carbs, intermittent fasting happens naturally because you're eating nutritionally dense foods, you stay satiated longer, and your cravings go away. Well, I eat lots of carbs, so I don't have much to say on that because it's not my experience. Some people find a lot of success with low carb diets, and she's saying you'll go into intermittent fasting naturally. The only time I've ever done low carb is when I was intentionally intermittent fasting. So I don't have much advice, but I do appreciate you sharing, Jennifer. Rich Samuel says, 1 meal every other day, 7 p.m. to midnight. Eat and drink whatever and as much as I want. That puts me into maintenance. So I think that is wonderful to hear what someone else does. 1 meal every other day. So one day you don't eat, the next day you eat. 7 p.m. to midnight, a 5-hour eating window. You can get a lot in 5 hours. Eat and drink whatever and as much as you want. That puts me into maintenance. Sounds like he does alternate day, 1 meal a day fasting. I am so glad it works for you, Rich, and maybe that will help someone else. Okay, another tongue twister name. Francis Frites? My best advice is to do whatever is best for you. There are no rules. You can read every book in the world to learn about it, but in the end, do what is best for you. Nobody knows your body better than you. I fast a minimum of 18 hours every day. I have lemon water during my fast, and I eat what I want in my eating window. It seems to be working for me as I'm losing weight. Congratulations, Francis, and I definitely agree that what I do, what Francis does, what James does, what my friend Rich that just said he does 1 meal a day every other day, it's not because someone told us to do exactly what we're doing. It's because we took the time to find out what works for us. And I love that advice. We've heard it a few times already. What works for me is not gonna be exactly what works for you. And the only way to figure out what works for you is to try all the different tools of intermittent fasting and implement what works best for your lifestyle. I promise you, there are so many different ways to implement it. You can adjust, and I really do think as long as there's nothing medically keeping you from doing it, most people can find success with it. Thank you, Francis, for the advice. Amanda Davies is next, and Amanda says, if you hit a weight loss plateau, change your eating window to a different time of day for a couple of days or so. I think that's really good advice. I actually find that I don't eat the same time every day because your body can adjust. So I think Amanda's advice is the counter to that, and I've never ate the same thing every day, so I automatically change it, so I don't know how it impacts a plateau on me personally, but I think there's merit to that advice. So if you eat almost the same time every day and you're hitting a plateau, change up your eating window and see what it does. I appreciate that advice, Amanda. Yearly Silvis says, the only reason I can go 20 hours without eating is because the last meal was meat. Meat for satiety, and I'm losing weight. Cool. A lot of people love to eat a lot of meat. I'm not the best meat eater, so I don't share a ton of meat protein on my channel. I have 2 vegetarian daughters, and we just don't eat a ton of meat in this house. I definitely agree that it works really well for some people, and I appreciate you sharing that advice. My dad is very similar. He likes to eat a lot of meat in his eating window. He's an intermittent faster. He's found a lot of success, and I know there's people like that. I don't have much experience sharing about meat, but thank you for your advice. Let's see. Next is, I'm not going to be able to say this, guys. Fani Anagnonstopula? I can't say that. I know I butchered it. It's on the screen. No guilt. Stick to clean fast as much as possible every day. But if a Diet Coke helps you fast longer, do so. Personally, if I fast longer, I get better results. I eat carbs because it keeps me full. I fast every single day for 18 hours minimum like Jackie does. I love this flexible intermittent fasting lifestyle, and it's the first time since giving birth and becoming menopausal in less than a decade that I've started slimming down. First, congratulations to you. Again, I'm sorry I butchered your name, but I definitely think there is merit when she mentions if you need a Diet Coke to get through the fast. I definitely agree. It's better to have the Diet Coke and continue fasting than to stop your fast. I will never disagree with that. If you need that to get you through, especially as you're adjusting, do it. It's just not what I think is optimum. But again, what works for me doesn't work for you. If it doesn't make you hungry and it allows you to fast on, personally, it makes me feel like I'm gonna eat. But that's not how it works for everyone. Try it. If it lets you fast on longer, I completely agree. Do what allows you to continue fasting. So congratulations on starting to slim down. I think that for me personally, having a minimum amount that I want to fast every day allows me to focus on the fasting, and then I enjoy my eating window. I don't have a set time that I eat every day. I just fast at least 18 hours. That gives me a lot of flexibility, and it sounds like Fanny has found a lot of success in the same way. And also, to go to her point of no guilt, I agree. Enjoy your eating window. Don't beat yourself up about it. Every day is not gonna be a perfect diet. Probably most days won't be a perfect diet, but it's sustainable if you allow yourself to enjoy food and then you give yourself long periods of fasting and you adjust to that. I think that is so sustainable. You are still prioritizing the fast, which gives you a lot of health benefits. And personally, as I'm approaching 2 years of intermittent fasting, I am finding that I am continuing to choose better food choices. I'm not perfect. I'm far from perfect. Let the internet tell you, they will. But I don't care, and I don't have guilt because I know I'm making better choices by fasting, and I can rest easy in that. So don't give yourself the guilt trip, no shame. Enjoy your eating window, allow the changes to occur, and embrace the fast. Thank you for your comment. This next piece of advice came in video form. Everyone say hello to Ryan from Intermittent Fasting with Ryan. His YouTube channel is going to be linked below. Reminder, if there is anyone that has contributed with an intermittent fasting YouTube channel, I am linking it below. Make sure you check everyone out. And I think seeing different people's journeys really helps people on as they begin to see that it doesn't have to be the same for everyone. What works for me may not work for Ryan. What works for Ryan may not work for you. But being exposed to a lot of different ways to do intermittent fasting is gonna help with the success. So say hello to Ryan, and here's his advice.
So I have two pieces of advice that I always give to anyone that's looking to get into intermittent fasting. And that first piece of advice is you have to take a long-term approach. Now, I have struggled with my weight my entire life, have done yo-yo diets ever since I got out of high school. And one of the things that I did differently with intermittent fasting is I set my mind to the task of I need to figure out how to lose weight and get healthy for the rest of my mind. That's the first thing that you have to do, because when you take that long-term approach, if you stumble like you are going to, it's okay because we have the rest of our lives to get healthy. So that's my first piece of advice, is you gotta take a long-term approach. My second bit of advice when you're getting ready to start intermittent fasting is just worry about the fast itself. There's so many times that we try to do everything all at once. We try to start fasting. We try to revamp our nutrition. We try to start a new fitness program. We try to drink 10 glasses of water, all of these things on day one, and we try to do too much too early. So my second bit of advice is when you are getting ready to start, just worry about the fast itself. Hit your fasting windows and commit to that. Build up the fasting muscle before you try to take on all these other things. Just worry about the fast and be consistent in that until that becomes habit. Worry about the other stuff down the road. So those are my two bits of advice for anyone that's looking to get started with intermittent fasting.
Once again, thank you, Ryan, for sending that in, and I appreciate everyone's comments. My personal advice is actually very similar to Ryan's second point. I think that when you start intermittent fasting, you have to be extremely committed to learn how to fast. It's going to be an adjustment, and even though it feels quite easy to me almost every day at this point, it wasn't that way. I had to commit to fasting, learn to fast, and I don't think you need to try to do everything on top of it. Don't try to challenge yourself with a diet and learning a new diet and a fitness routine while you're learning to fast. So my number one piece of advice, very similar to what Ryan just said, learn to fast, become a good faster, adapt to the lifestyle, and then you can start to make changes or do challenges within the fasting window, within the eating window. You can start to make changes and tweaks. Those definitely will change your progress. And I have experimented a million times. You guys have seen it. That's what my channel is. However, I didn't do that until I was good at fasting. I don't recommend that you learn to fast and do a keto challenge. I don't recommend that you learn to fast while you also do your first 72-hour fast. Learn to fast, become really good at it. Then you can start to tweak, experiment, and continue your journey after you know you're good at the fasting. And the last two were actually the same piece of advice. One's from Sonia Cotton and the other is from Cynthia Nicholson. Stay busy during fasting periods and stay busy. And I 100% agree. There are days where I still have an hour left of my fast and it is a time where I clean out a cupboard, I'll start prepping dinner. Even if dinner's not for 4 hours, I'll chop my veggies, I'll do different things. And I find that staying busy, even if it's with food, chopping, baking, it allows me to focus on something else. Go for a walk, play a game with your kids. I actually wrote an entire blog post on how to push longer into a fast. You can check out the blog post link below. I shared a lot of different ideas on how I push into a fast if I'm trying to get that last hour or two and food is on the brain. I have lots of ideas and you can check out the blog post link below. I appreciate the time and the effort any single person that gave advice took to leave it. I appreciate every single one of you. And again, what works for me isn't what's going to work for every single person that's starting their intermittent fasting journey. And even if you're not starting, you can change what your journey looks like at any point. So feel free to add your advice in the comments if you didn't make it a part of this video. I'm sure others will be reading that. And if you want to see my 5 tips for starting intermittent fasting and you're brand new around here, you can check out this video right here where I share with you 5 tips that I think will help you be successful as you start intermittent fasting. Thank you so much for watching. Ciao, done and ciao.